Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lion's Den once again. Today we speak with Danny Nathan, who's the CEO of Apollo 21. Now, Danny started his career in advertising and then at a certain point shifted into product design, product development, product launch. And we have a great conversation where we talk through what those things entail, designing a product and launching a product and really trying to take a product from never existing to suddenly everyone knows about it. And it's a fascinating conversation. You know, with Apollo 21, his company now, Danny and his team, they basically work with companies to identify needs, whether those needs are internal operational needs or external product, customer facing needs. And they design technology solutions. Could be mobile apps, web apps. It could be internal software tools that facilitate, better efficiency inside. So it's sort of a product meets operations and software consulting company, I would say. But unlike other consulting companies, they don't just create the strategy and then leave. They really get embedded and make sure that their ideas and their visions come into reality. So really cool conversation, really smart guy. You're going to enjoy this one. Danny, welcome to the Lion's Den.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Well, I'm pumped to talk to you because I want to dig into Apollo 21 and product design, product strategy, all that stuff that you do at Apollo 21. And I really want to dig into it because I've never done anything like that. So my career I've been like finance, operations, a little bit of systems, but more like operational software stuff, never product design or anything. So I'm very curious to learn how it works, what your process is, how to do it best. But let's start at the beginning a little bit because you started your career in advertising. Is that right?
I did, way back when.
Okay. And so how did that go? What was that like and why did you end up getting out of it?
So I started my career in advertising in the early 2000s, and I was probably the last batch of people out of ad school that ignored the fact that the internet existed. So it was all magazine, newspaper, TV ads, whatever. And to be frank, I got into the world of advertising and found out very quickly that I didn't like it at all. I have I've come to terms with the fact that the most fun you'll ever have in advertising is during ad school. And once you get out into the real world, it's sort of a mean, nasty place. And my biggest frustration was that I was spending my time making ads that were designed to interrupt people at inopportune times to sell them something that they didn't want to be sold. And it just felt dirty and like annoying. And I don't know, you sit at home and you watch TV and you go, commercial break, whatever. And it's really hard to sort of reconcile that with, oh yeah, but by the way, I spent all day making commercials. And so I sort of took it upon myself to find a way out and landed in the world of technology and product design and all of the fun stuff that you mentioned a moment ago.
Got it. Okay. And so I was looking on your LinkedIn page. And so, once you were out of advertising, one of the things I saw in there is you ended up joining a digital innovation consultancy called Makeable. I know it had a previous name, but let's just say Makeable. And I was reading on the summary there. So it's, everything on product design and strategy engagements, everything from concept to user experience, visual design, the production of the actual stuff. I saw you worked with General Mills, Amex, Dyson. So what exactly were you doing on these projects? How did that work?
It varied pretty heavily. We were sort of the misfit toy box, and people would call us in and effectively, often they would say to us, all right, we've got those guys over there doing our ads. We've got these guys over here doing our website or whatever. We want you to come in and tell us what's missing and what are we not thinking of that we could do to have an impact. And so it varied.
It was that vague.
Sometimes it was, yeah. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was a little more specific. We helped Dyson launch their bladeless fan product when it first came out. And that was a really interesting one. We flew out there and had no idea what we were going to be looking at or what we were going to be working on. They just said, we want to hire you. We have a secret project and show up here on this date. And so we walked in and they literally had like a fan prototype on the table with like, a drape over it. And so we were still sitting there going like, okay, what is it? And, we're expecting a vacuum cleaner or something. And of course, they pull it back. And, the first time you see one of those things, it's just like this ring with a base on it. And you're like, cool. What is it?
Yeah.
So that was a fun one. So we helped with the launch of that. We helped kind of design and launch a number of products for American Express. We built an installation for the Museum of Modern Art here in New York that was a ton of fun. So basically, folks would come to us when they wanted something unique and different that sort of shook things up and that took advantage of the realities of where technology and social media and all of that fun stuff was. Now, bear in mind, this was 2007, 2008, in there. So the iPhone was brand new. Social media was kind of finding its legs and really becoming a thing that everybody started using. And it really changed the dynamic of how companies thought about interacting with customers and people in general. And it was the reason that I enjoyed it so much was that it was exemplary of the opportunity to shift away from the kind of interruptive advertising model that I had grown so frustrated with. And so I was in hog heaven when I was there. And it was just it was such a liberating experience to work with brands of the caliber that you've just described, doing things that were not, can you make us a TV spot to sell our platinum card or whatever it was. And so it was a ton of fun and a huge learning experience for me.
Yeah. So with the Dyson example, it looks like what you got. So what you said is you did like a big global product launch. So what does that mean, a global product launch? Is that figuring out all the different distribution channels of your messaging to hit the right people? Like, what is it?
Yeah, that was, where should we launch it? When? How should we get it in front of people? Should we spend money on a media buy, or is there some other way to interact with customers and to make them aware of the new offering? And effectively they said, here's a thing. We want to sell X number of them by, I don't remember the dates and months and stuff at this point. It's been a while, but we want to sell X number of them in the next 6 months. Like, tell us how to do it. And so, at this time, as I said, social media was really finding its footing. And so the ideas of influencer marketing were in their infancy and were extremely effective at the time. And so we worked with Dyson to create and sort of package up these unique editions of the new fan. And they came in these really cool gift boxes. And it was all sorts of it was fun little science experiments that you could do with your kids using the fan. And we had like a cast fan blade in there that was like in memoriam of the, the old school bladed fan. And there was this parachute that you could attach to the fan, and the fan would spin, but it was so smooth that this like parachute would just hang out in front of it and kind of do this thing as it moved back and forth. And so we created these really unique boxes that had the fan and a bunch of accoutrements in them. And then we sent them to a whole bunch of influential bloggers and people in the social media space and things like that. And we held roundtable discussions with James Dyson and those people so that they could sort of meet the man and hear from him why they decided to build a fan. And then we held a number of events and built almost like a museum or a traveling exhibit that showcased the science behind the fan and why it was better than, the thing that we were all used to getting at Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever. And so it was really kind of a mixed media experience that was surrounded with quasi marketing, all focused on getting people to talk about the fan and share it on blogs and things like that so that it would gain traction and awareness when they went to launch.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that is actually fascinating. It's like taking something that didn't exist previously and overnight trying to turn it into something that feels like it's always existed because everybody knows about it and everybody's
exactly. Yes, that's a great characterization.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm scrolling up a little bit on your LinkedIn page and I'm seeing up above that, it looks like after your time at Makeable, I guess you were probably a pro at a lot of this UX, UI design stuff, because I'm seeing I Want a Nom and I'm seeing Date Night Is. So are these now, you're at the point in your career where you're starting to just offshoot independently these like different apps and tools and services and stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was. So I spent about 5 years at Makeable and eventually left because I felt like I had spent 5 years coming up with some really fun, amazing ideas for a bunch of other people. But it had gotten my brain churning about, okay, what else could we do? And, hit a moment of, well, why do I have to be beholden to somebody else to make that happen? Let's go and create. And so I Want to Nom was kind of a fun little side project. It was effectively Pinterest for recipes, but it launched before Pinterest did. And then, of course, Pinterest came along. And as I like to say, they ate our lunch. Yeah, but I'm bummed.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that was a fun experiment. We it got really popular in South America of all places for some reason, and so we had I don't know 15,000-20,000 users down there, and we played with that for a little while, and then Date Night was the first startup that I really went out to pursue as like, okay, I'm gonna do this startup thing as opposed to just kind of make a fun toy to put out in the world. And so my then girlfriend and I started that one. We had met online at a time when this was pre-Tinder, pre-app dating. It was when online dating was like, a big old profile and all of that stuff. And we sort of had this aha moment of, well, there's a lot of people who are meeting online now, and that's becoming much more the norm, or at least acceptable. What happens when people who have met online are now in a committed relationship to one another, but are used to thinking about and building relationships online? How can we continue that trend into the world of I'm now in a relationship? And so Date Night was a platform designed to both remind people in committed relationships and then help them discover date opportunities so that they could, keep the fire alive, sort of not fall into the trap of, Netflix and pizza tonight or whatever it was.
Right. Okay, cool. So you were basically, it was like a massive marketplace, I guess we could call it, of a bunch of different date ideas, and were there like coupons and table availabilities?
Exactly. So it was partly coupons, it was partly reservations, it was date ideas, and it was a mixture of discovery and content opportunities. So we were doing a lot of interviewing couples in relationships to learn about what date night meant to them and what qualified as a date night and what didn't, things like that. And then the platform would allow you to specify some interests. And part of what made it unique is that we created it as kind of a dual connected account thing. So I had an account, my girlfriend had an account, but those two accounts were associated with one another. And so it would look at it and go, oh, Danny likes to go and walk in the park and have a great cocktail, and his girlfriend likes to go to the beach and I don't know, whatever, try new restaurants. Here's interesting ways to combine all of those or some of those interests into an experience that can happen in a day or an evening or whatever it was. And so we would sort of match you up and then kind of programmatically plan out your date of like, hey, make a dinner reservation here, wander over here and grab a drink at this really great cocktail bar, and then finish the night with a show at whatever or something like that.
That's actually kind of genius, because then nobody feels like, oh, I guess we're doing your idea for date night tonight, or my,
right.
Or, oh, this is my week. We get to do what I want. It's like you mix exactly. in a little bit of what everybody wants. Cool. Okay. Are you married now, or do you still have a girlfriend?
I am married to that girlfriend.
You're married to that girlfriend. Do you guys still maintain your date nights?
We try to, as we've gotten older and life has gotten busier, we have perhaps not been quite as good about it, but we still think back to those days and try to make a point of getting out and doing things that are, specifically purposefully designed around letting us sort of shed the work week and, enjoy one another's company.
Good. Yeah, I'm terrible. My wife and I don't do date night nearly enough. We say we need to, and then weeks pass. We're like, yeah, we got to get out there.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from that was she made it very clear that IKEA did not count as a date.
What if you lay in one of the beds together and like watch a movie or something? I think that could.
That might have twisted it around. I don't remember exactly how it came up. We were we had to make an IKEA run for some reason, and it was while we were working on Date Night and I cracked some stupid joke about oh look, we got Date Night in this week. She got to give me this look like, yeah, never say that again.
That's funny. All right, I'm scrolling up on LinkedIn still, skipping ahead a little bit maybe. Design sprint consultants. So now you started, did you found that one? So that was your company?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was, the name says it all. So you're basically
Yeah,
helping other
it is what it sounds
companies.
like. Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with the design sprint process?
Not in detail. I mean, I understand what it means, but not in detail.
Got it. So, a design sprint is a process that was created out of Google Ventures. And it's basically a 1 week kind of deep dive workshop into, hey, we have this problem. Here's the opportunity that we see. How do we go about solving that? And then actually create a prototype of it and test it with real users. And the whole process is condensed into about 5 days. And
Okay.
it's an incredibly valuable and worthwhile process, especially when applied in the right way. And we had been running a number of them and decided to just sort of formally create a thing around that.
Okay, got it. And do you find that that's like the best way to do like ideation and design early on, or
Uh,
depends?
it is a process that I believe in and that I still utilize to this day. I think it's really hard to call something the best way, especially when you're talking about building new products and the ventures that are there to support them. Um, it works differently every time. And part of the pain and joy of entrepreneurship and venture building and new product development is figuring out what's going to work this time. And so we do still lean on the design sprint process as a way to explore possibilities and to test them quickly. But there are other tools in the toolkit that we have learned to layer in and sort of mix and match into the mix.
Okay, gotcha. And so at Design Sprint Consultants, were your clients mostly startups, or were you also working with some like corporations?
It was a pretty good mix. So we did some work with a corporate insurance company. We did some work with some ad agencies. We did work with a number of different startups. It was surprisingly diverse in terms of the types of clients that were interested in trying out that process and seeing how it could work for them.
Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm skipping forward to early 2021. So this is now we're getting to Apollo 21.
Yep.
Which is the business you're currently running. So tell me a little bit about Apollo 21.
So Apollo 21 is an innovation and product design studio. And basically we work with clients anywhere from idea stage startups up to Fortune 100 companies. And generally we help them do any of three things. So we help ideate and then build technology that they will sell to their customers. We help them assess internal processes and then build technology to help them with workflow management and operational efficiency and managing data and marketing and all sorts of things like that. And then the last thing we do is help companies understand and create an innovation strategy that makes sort of the operational and the cultural side of that doable and tangible, and moves innovation beyond just a talking point and into something that is repeatable and actionable within the organization.
Got it. Okay. And something I was seeing on your website that I don't know if I totally understand is this concept of venture driven growth. So what do you mean by that?
So venture-driven growth is the idea, especially in larger organizations, that innovation and opportunities for scale don't have to come explicitly from things that are created within your own walls, but rather companies can begin to think and act almost more like a venture capital firm, where they can support outside companies in the development of something that aligns to their core business, and then utilize that investment as either what I think of as almost like an insurance or a hedge against their own future. So if you think about a really large company, supporting a startup, for example, that might end up being a disruptive element in their own industry, there's two ways to look at that. You could either try to combat that startup and prevent them from gaining market share in order to protect your own market, or you could invest in them and help them grow so that their success becomes your success. And that way, even if they do start to chip away at your user base, your customers, things like that, you still win because you're invested in their success.
Interesting. Okay. So it's sort of the Microsoft, they own Bing, right? And then they obviously had this massive investment in ChatGPT. Okay. So it's sort of that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the thinking that surrounds why might we choose to invest and fund outside companies to help our own growth, as opposed to sort of pulling up the drawbridge and going, nope, we're only going to focus
Yeah.
on what's happening inside the house.
And so is that, so when you have like a larger organization that you're working with, is this sort of part of your engagement with them is encouraging venture driven growth and sort of teaching them how they might go about that?
Yeah, basically. And it's not every single engagement kind of lands in that area, but it's always something
Mhm.
that we keep in mind. And it's a huge opportunity that we see, especially for larger organizations. And so even if you haven't brought us in to help develop a venture driven growth strategy, there's a really good chance that we'll start pointing things out and start kind of looking at how those opportunities might be manifested in whatever it is we're doing. And so, one of the ways that we look at that is the development of joint ventures, or the development of new revenue lines, for example. So, a lot of companies kind of go, okay, well, we do this at our core. How do we go and find a new customer market that aligns to our core business, but that we can't currently serve? And so often that comes to bear through the creation of something new. And that could be something new that you own and operate wholly, or it could be something that you work with an outside company, be it a startup or another highly established organization, to create and own, again, for the benefit of everybody involved.
Fascinating. Huh. Yeah, I want to pick your brain on that maybe later.
Sure.
It's a very cool idea. Okay, so going back to a couple of the other things you said that you guys do. So the first thing I think you said was ideate and design technology products, solutions, that kind of thing, which I guess would be more like customer facing sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was like internal software and technology to make internal processes more efficient. So
Exactly.
what would you say your split is between those two in terms of like which one you spend more of your time on?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe 60-40 in favor of the kind of internal side of things. And
Oh,
it's
really?
not,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, interestingly. And it's not necessarily by choice. I think we've had a decent number of clients that have come to us or been referred to us because we've been successful in that space. And so,
Hmm.
we've developed a bit of a reputation around being capable of helping companies solve those types of challenges. And one of the things that really differentiates us from other quote unquote consulting companies, and if you talk to anybody who's worked with consultants, one of the biggest complaints is usually, well, they came in, they learned a bunch, and then they handed us a big stack of slides and said, well, here, you should go and do this. And then they
Yeah.
leave. And the you should moment, in my experience, tends to be really frustrating for people because, cool, I should. Well, how do I? How do I make that a real thing and not just a you should? And so where we differentiate ourselves is we will help discover the you should, but we bring all of the necessary capabilities along for the ride in terms of, and we can help you create it. And here's how we would do it. And here's the technology required. And here's how it's going to integrate with your existing technology, et cetera, et cetera. And so not only can we help you figure out what's broken and how to fix it, but we can then make that a reality.
Gotcha. So if we talk about the internal, operational efficiency stuff,
Mm-hmm.
one of those projects, like what would be an example of one of those projects? Are we talking about like rolling out a new project management tool, or is it okay?
It could be, but generally speaking, project management is one way to look at it. But generally speaking, the things that we're creating are highly bespoke for the needs of that particular organization. And so I'll give you two examples. One, we had a financial services company that came to us, and their original kind of problem statement was very simply, "Help, we're drowning in email," and that was it. And so we spent about a month in discovery with them to interview a bunch of the internal stakeholders to understand where those emails were coming from, et cetera, et cetera. And to make a long story short, what we discovered was they're drowning in email because their entire process was email. When you need this, email Bob. When you need that, email Jane. Email, email, email. Well, of course you're going to drown in email if that's the only way that you do anything. And so what we ended up doing with them was working to define what in this case, the three most used processes were internally. And then we built a piece of technology that effectively forced them and guided them through the use of that process and put everything at their fingertips. So in this case, the financial services company was a money manager for high net worth individuals. And so they were running thousands upon thousands of transactions every day. And it was anything from here's my mobile bill, pay it, to I just bought an LLC from somebody or a company from somebody, go and spin up a new LLC, make the bank transfer, pay them, get it all stood up, get all the legal stuff, like go do everything for us. And so what we built was a highly flexible system that would track through every single transaction and all of the associated documentation, and then notify the right people at the right time within the organization and outside of the organization to get all of the necessary sign-offs and approvals, and then go through and execute the transaction. And in the process would track every single movement within the system so that they had a super robust audit trail. And if anything ever went wrong or a client called and said, hey, this ended up in the wrong place, they could literally track back to the date, the time, the transaction, the person that executed it, who gave permission for it, et cetera, and really run their business on that. And so it moved all of the communication off of email and into a purpose-built system. Similarly, we had a client in the remote guarding space. So think hundreds of properties, each with tens of cameras and sensors and microphones, all being monitored by like 3 people in a single location remotely. And similarly, they came to us not because they were drowning in email, but because they had found product market fit by cobbling together a few disparate pieces of technology that were already available on the market. And they had reached a point where in order to scale, they were going to have to hire 2 or 3 more people for every new client just to support and kind of manage all of the inbound alerting of a cat just ran across the screen, a dude's trying to break into a car at this apartment complex, and kind of help figure out, okay, we don't need to send an alert for the cat, but we do need to do something about the guy trying to break into the car. And so we, again, built from scratch a full operational platform that took in all of those different feeds, prioritized them in the background based on what was being recognized in the camera through computer vision and artificial intelligence, and then managed all of the alerting to the 3 or 4 people that were sitting in the command center so that they could pay attention to the guy trying to break into the car, but not worry about the cat walking across the screen, for example.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you often find that you're building from scratch when you're doing these sorts of things?
Most of what we build ends up being from scratch, with a slight caveat, which I'll get to in just a second here. But usually when somebody comes to us, they're asking us to build something that just isn't available off the shelf. And so it really necessitates building from scratch. The caveat, however, is we do have a piece of foundational technology that we own called Mission Control, which is not so much like, it's not a SaaS platform where you could go and sign up for it and just start using it tomorrow. Instead, I liken it to kind of like a box of Legos. So we've looked at all of the different projects that we've done for a variety of clients and said, okay, everybody needs user management. Everybody needs data ingest. Some people want project management kind of views, things like that. And so we've built modules for all of those things. And based on a project that comes in, we sort of dump the box of Legos on the floor, pick out the pieces that we want, put them together, build whatever new pieces they need. And now we have new pieces that are part of the toolbox, and we put it all back together for them and keep going.
Makes total sense. Okay. Switching over to when you're helping a client develop a sort of customer facing tool. So what kind of tool would that look like? Are we talking more like web app when we're talking down that path, or what?
It is generally some sort of application, whether it's web or mobile or desktop. It frankly kind of doesn't matter to us. We're happy to play in all of those spaces. But that is generally often that's looking for some sort of new way to engage with customers, be it a new revenue line or a new kind of media-driven offering. So again, to give you a couple of examples, we worked with a client for about 1.5 years that is in the rodeo space of all things. And, rodeo is not exactly the bastion of technology. And so, their goal was to bring a technology-oriented experience to the world of rodeo. And so we actually did both types of projects for them. We built a ton of internal software for managing the operations and production of rodeo events. And then we also built for them a mobile application that was effectively ESPN for rodeo. And so that was a way for them to engage both fans and athletes, create more connectivity between those two groups, and then also to help people become aware of what events were upcoming, give them a place to watch those via live stream, check out what the standings are at any given time during the season, things like that. So that was specific to them. We had another client.
You know what you should do? You should find a way to integrate that with all of the mechanical bulls in all sorts of bars around Texas. Ooh. And get the score, how long people were able to stay on the mechanical bull. There could be a ranking
rodeo
system.
Pro-Am. That's fun. I like that.
Exactly. What was the other one? You had another example?
Yeah, the other example that I can offer is we have a client in the restaurant space, and they were primarily direct to consumer and were looking to create a new revenue line. And so we helped them ideate and build a B2B catering offering that took advantage of what made them unique, which was they are effectively a ghost kitchen that operates about 30 different restaurant brands, all delivery only, all out of a single kitchen. And so the advantage and the huge differentiator for their catering offering was you could order a burger, I could order sushi, and it all shows up at the same time in one order.
Got it. Very cool.
Yeah.
This is awesome stuff. So, okay, I want to switch to, I just have to ask you this question before we run out of time.
Yeah, please.
So AI is a big buzzword.
Oh, that one.
You know more about it than I do, I'm sure. So, I mean, what's your take on it? Are we all going to be on universal basic income, not working anymore in 10 years, or what's going on?
I don't know if I'll go so far as to say that. I think that AI is here. It is absolutely going to change the way that we view the world and the way that work gets done. The biggest thing that I tend to tell people is it's not coming to eat your job tomorrow. And the more you can learn what it is capable of, how to use it, and how to take advantage of it in whatever role you're in, the more protected you will be and the more time you will have to figure out how to integrate it into your life and or protect yourself against, being eaten alive by it. And, we get a fair number of clients that come to us and say, oh my God, AI is here. We need it. We don't know what to do. And the reality is we're still very early. Most of the applications that we're seeing for AI they're useful. They're interesting. They're exciting to play with, and they are toys. The big changes in AI are things that I think we haven't even thought of yet. The beautiful promise that is AI really isn't, it can help write a tweet or a paper for you or whatever. It's right. The impact is going to be in the mass scale change of how things get done. And we're a little ways off from that still.
Got it. Have you taken some of the toys and started to integrate it into that Lego set you had mentioned earlier?
Oh, absolutely. We're playing. I use AI every single day, full stop. And it's anything from the ability to scale content creation for the purposes of SEO, for example. So programmatic SEO is a huge talking point these days, and it's usually reserved for A/B comparisons, things like that. So if you look at like a Clutch or a G2 where it's, which is better, Substack or Beehive, automatically they will create a page that's Substack versus Beehive because they know somewhere out there somebody's going Substack versus Beehive on Google. And so part of what's interesting is the ability to then do that at scale for content that is not comparative, but rather is, is generative in nature in terms of how can we drive more traffic to our website so that people learn about Apollo 21 or whatever else that use case might be.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I want to wrap things up here. The examples that you gave of the different companies, it was restaurants, rodeos, financial services. So I guess it's safe to say you work with any industry.
We are industry agnostic.
Industry agnostic. And any size company, larger companies. Okay. Any size company, any industry, and you'll just fit the engagement to the need. Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll fit the engagement to the need. Really what it comes down to is if you have a problem that you are trying to solve or an opportunity that you're trying to crack and technology can play a role in that, then we can help. And really where we're differentiated is in the consulting plus execution side of things. So we are not order takers. We really are not thrilled about projects where somebody comes to us and says, here's a giant list of requirements. Could you go make them live? We can, yes, but it's boring and we don't like to. We like to get involved and collaborate deeply with our clients to understand what they're trying to accomplish and why and what the ideal outcome is, and then help work with them to figure out how to get to that outcome.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to link to your website, which I believe is apollo21.io. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So we will link there in the notes. And otherwise, Danny, thank you very much for joining me in the Lion's Den.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.